Alrighty tighty folks, we are here today in the garagey with this '06 Town & Country, Voyager, Caravan, Grand Caravan, etc. Doing a few things to it. In this video I'm going to show you kind of the common problem, why these transmissions tend to leak even when people do the service. We begin the video with me mid-sentence, because I lost some footage and I have no idea why it just starts mid-sentence. But here we are. It sits, when it's bolted, at a funny angle. This is our first problem. You remove all the bolts. You've got this this kind of keeper stud here. It's got a nut on it. You remove all these bolts. The pan will just angle down and drain along this edge into your drip pan there. Easy peasy, job's a good one. Oh, but when I was doing this, I noticed a few things. First, there is red RTV for some reason on some of these bolts. No, I don't know why there would be red RTV on a transmission pan, but no. They also use way too much if it's seeping out all over the place like that. So that's our first problem. Second problem is, I will show you this bolt. This is a transmission pan bolt for this series of transmission, which they use these transmissions in a lot of different vehicles, not just Caravans. Or a few different vehicles, not just Caravans. Got this. This is our transmission pan bolt. This is another bolt that was in there. They appear to be the same size, but there's an issue. The standard transmission pan bolt does not go into the hole because somebody cross-threaded it and boogered up the end of the hole the length of the standard transmission pan bolt. So what that means is I am going to have to move the camera up so we can watch. Put you over here. Put you over there. We can watch this guy. So when he gets to the point where he's dripping about this fast, that's the point at which you're gonna wanna hold the pan the rest of the way down. So we push him up, pull this nut off of here, get off me. We're gonna pull the pan down and tip it to drain all the rest of it out of the pan. And you'll notice the filter is just going to sit there and drippity drain for a little bit too. Crap all over this thing. We're going to put the pan, you can see the gasket there, all covered in oil. Part of that's because I was dripping it through, but part of that's because the thing has been leaking for quite some time. It would appear as though the thing has been leaking probably since the last guy was in here, because it is all over the place. The chain cover also appears to be leaking on these transmissions. There's a chain that sits under that cover. You can see there's ooey gooey up at the top of the cover. Not all the way at the top though, so it might just be the pan. So I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're not going to take that cover off today. We are, however, going to clean the poo out of it, because it may have just been this gasket leaking this whole time. And just as you drive, air comes back, it sprays, it's going to spray your oil back, mostly back and down, but because it's oil, it will creep up a little bit from the leak point. So that's fine. The oil was not in bad condition, it was just leaking, so we have to drain it anyway. Service capacity is 4 quarts, I'll probably mention that again later. we do want to remove this filter element. Like that. And like that. The reason I want to show you guys this is for exactly this reason that that we're in here today in the first place. Because these things are notorious for leaking even after doing the pan. When I was doing this for a living back in the olden days, we had a number of these things with this transmission that would come in. I'm going to set you in the pan. They would come into the shop with the complaint that some guy did my transmission service and now there's puddles all over my driveway, worse than it was before. And I'll show you why. A, this whole thing sits at an angle. That's dumb. That means that this gasket in the back here is always soaked in oil. There's always ATF along this gasket surface, which is not how gaskets really work, honestly. Not this type of gasket, at least. So, there is a fix for this that took us some time to come up with, or to figure out on our own, because when we figured it out, it was about the first round of when these guys were coming into the shops for leaking transmissions or transmission services, standard service intervals to get the filter replaced and the fluid replaced. The biggest issue, of course, is this, this back surface. You can see this surface here, what appears to be two different gasket materials around that surface there, and it looks like somebody used a screwdriver to scrape the old stuff off, not very well, mind you, and tried to apply our red RTV all over it. That's not how we do this. So the first step, I guess it's the second step. The first step is removing the pan and the filter. So step 1, remove pan and filter. Step 2, walk away. If I took brake cleaner and I sprayed all up inside here in nooks and crannies and everything, I sprayed all of this super, super well. Got it all nice and clean. I could come back 2 minutes later, and that right there, this one, you see this drip? This one drip right here. ATF, I don't want you all over my hand. Thank you. Wipe this guy off real quick. Get the camera up in here. This drip right here. This is the drip that prevents these things from sealing when doing this service. Every time. It is this drip. You can see up in there, there's a little crevice. I've never taken these transmissions fully apart, so I don't know exactly what's up inside that crevice. I do know that ATF collects up there, and it will do this. It will effectively capillary action drip constantly down there. So what we do, we let it sit overnight. We had one we let sit for 3 days and it continued to drip. It slowed down over time, but it continued to drip. So what we do is we let this guy drip. We're going to let him drip overnight tonight. And then we're going to come in and we're going to shove a rag up in there for a couple more hours while we clean the pan, we prep the pan, we get the new filter in, we wipe all the rest of this down, we get the wire wheel, and we clean all of this up, make us a nice, smooth sealing surface. Same with the pan, we get the old gasket off. It's going to, I imagine this gasket's going to chip off of here when I try to pull it. Oh my God. That was so nice. So satisfying when they just actually come off. So, we don't have to do a lot to the pan. Huzzah! This type of gasket is very, very widely known for when it gets old and dry and brittle, which this guy isn't because somebody has done this job before me. You have to get in there with a chisel or a razor blade or whatever, and you chip away at it. Now I do see this guy right here is warped. This bolt, which is this funny bolt, was in this hole. And you can see, I don't know if you can see in there very well, that hole is all buggered up. It's going to get helicoiled. So we can put the correct bolt back in. We're going to go to the dealership. We're going to get a good bolt. We're going to helicoil that hole so that all the factory bolts can go back in. And then we're going to get our dead blow or our brass mallet maybe and a piece of wood. And we're going to straighten this pan out because somebody had one bolt, that bolt specifically, torqued down to about 40 foot-pounds, which is way too much. Way too much. And the rest of them torqued to nothing. I didn't have to use a ratchet to break any of them loose. I pulled them out by hand, which I wish I had gotten on camera, honestly. Kicking myself right now. But that is what we're going to do. We're going to let him drip overnight tonight. And we'll clean the pan in the morning. And I'll use cleaning the pan as my timer. We'll come and we'll shove a shop rag in there after it drips, because otherwise it'll just soak the rag and that'll be the end of it. It'll continue dripping. But we're going to do all that, and then we're going to clean off all of that mess from where it's been dripping, probably honestly since the day it was done, because it's just a mess under here.
Several days later.
It appears to be going all right. All right. So, got transmission pan off here, and I'm probably going to be talking like I'm doing the video. I don't know, because like half the time I pull the video back up, especially records through OBS, and audio is just all over the place. Like, I don't know what the hell OBS is doing, but nothing changes between one record session and the other record session, and the audio is like here on one and down here on another. And then when you amplify it, obviously that data is not there. So amplifying it is just like zooming into a low resolution image. The data's not there. All you're gonna see is pixels, right? All you're gonna see is fuzz. But whatever. Anyway, transmission pan's off of Town and Country, Voyager Caravan, Grand Caravan. We got our pan off here. We're gonna put our cleaner in the drip pan here in just a moment. But I figured I'd show you guys the magnet. And on the magnet, you can see there's some iron, and that is for So I don't know if I should be worried or not, because this van has close to 200,000 miles on it, and if that were how much metal you had on the magnet after 200,000 miles, you wouldn't be worried about it. That's fine. That's normal. Even with lubrication, even with oil, metal parts rubbing together are going to wear. And they're not going to wear as, atoms at a time. You're going to get particles you can physically see, because that's just how it works. Until we come up with some method of artificial friction negation, that's just how it's going to work. I really need a gimbal for this camera, probably. It's probably super shaky. But this pan has been pulled off once before, and the fluid was in not bad a shape. It didn't smell burnt, it didn't smell old, it was still red and clean and not bad at all. Tell you what we'll do, real quick. Let's go pull the pan out from underneath. Should be done dripping by now, it's been 2.5 days. So let's go pull the pan and take a look inside of it and see if there's a bunch of sparklies in it or not. I can tell you, there's a leaf in it. I tell you what, if you got trees growing inside your transmission, probably something you should go take a look at. So we get our handy dandy flashlighty here. Not too bad. Get you guys turned around over here. I don't know if it comes out through the camera all that well. But you don't see many. What you would see if you have a lot of metal wear is you'd see, so I don't know if you can see that line, that dark line right there. So the lighter is going to be metal bits and the darker is going to be oil without metal bits. And of course picking it up did swirl it around a little bit. What we're going to do real quick is I'm going to grab a screwdriver, and I'm pretty sure this thing is magnetic. Very, very lightly magnetic. We're going to kind of swirl it through the fluid. See if we pick up anything that's not on the magnet, which you shouldn't. Given the magnet looks the way it does, I don't expect there to be a whole lot of much of anything in here. Flashlight's making a bunch of noise. But we can see ooh, that's getting hot. It's very hot. Flashlight on high with lithium battery.
And yet again, no idea what happened here. There was nothing else after that, just me rambling on about something else that was nonsensical. So, all the rambling got cut, and the reason why magnetism, paramagnetism, diamagnetism, ferromagnetism, which is just magnetism, is important has to do with how you interact with the particles suspended in the oil when you're changing the pan, the filter, and the oil, etc., etc. If you take a very strong magnet and you run it through the oil and you see kind of swirls creating themselves, that would be brass, which contains copper, a diamagnetic. If you move a screwdriver through that is magnetic, non-magnetic, it doesn't matter, and you see swirls but that doesn't interact with a magnet in any way, that's generally aluminum. And you always have some amount of clutch material in the fluid because clutches wear, that's what they do. And we didn't see anything that really made us worry, like I said before, in the pan or on the magnet. We're just going to clean it all up and get it all back together. Make sure jobs are good.
appears to be going. All right. So, got transmission pan off here, and I'm probably going to be talking like I'm doing the video. I don't know, because like half the time I pull the video back up, especially records through OBS, and audio is just all over the place. Like, I don't know what the hell OBS is doing, but nothing changes between one record session and the other record session, and the audio is like here on one.
This right here is going to be one of those cases where if you watch the streams, you'll have heard it before. Do as I say, not as I do. I couldn't find what I swear I had, some small files to be able to get these burrs off of the transmission pan mounting flange. So I ended up using just a small razor blade that I had laying around. I don't recommend this, because an unsteady hand or an untrained hand, if you're not really quite sure what you're doing, you can end up causing more damage to the surface. If you watch carefully, you'll see that I'm kind of laying the blade flat and feeling for the burrs with the edge of the blade. And only then am I turning in and taking any kind of material out. The idea here being that the last guy, when they got in there with a screwdriver and they boogered up that surface, we want to take the burrs that lift out away from that sealing surface away, which does end up leaving us with a tiny indent and material loss. But that's kind of the purpose of the RTV. Any kind of bumps or burrs are going to interfere with the sealing surface far more than small amounts of missing material. You'll see me lubing the O-ring there so we can put the filter on. Always, 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 always put some kind of a lubricant on your O-rings when you're assembling your parts. This is a must.
It appears to be going. All right. So, got transmission pan off here, and I'm probably going to be talking like I'm doing the video. I don't know, because like half the time I pull the video back up, especially records through OBS, and audio is just all over the place. Like, I don't know what the hell OBS is doing, but nothing changes between one record session and the other record session, and the audio is like here on one and down here on another, And then when you amplify it, obviously, that data is not there. So amplifying it is just like zooming into a low resolution image. The data's not there. All you're gonna see is pixels, right? All you're gonna see is fuzz. But whatever. Anyway, transmission pans off of Town and Country, Voyager Caravan, Grand Caravan. We got our pan off here. We're gonna put our cleaner in the drip pan here in just a moment. But I figured I'd show you guys the magnet. And on the magnet, you can see there's some iron. And that is for, so I don't know if I should be worried or not. Because
when I looked up the torque spec for this thing, the factory solution was RTV alone, and the factory torque spec was 163 inch-pounds. Obviously, with a different gasket type and a different sealing solution, that changes altogether. If this were a paper gasket, we could probably go with 163 inch-pounds and it wouldn't be a problem. But the gasket that came with the filter kit, it was just a plain rubber gasket. So we had to modify the procedure a little bit. Rubber gaskets are generally in the range of 70 to 90 inch-pounds, which is a good bit lower than the 163 that the book called for. So we ended up going with what worked for the gasket material, since we were changing the gasket, and I let it sit overnight so that the RTV, Honda Bond in this case, would cure fully before I put fluid in it. Drove it around for a little bit after this video and have not yet seen any leaks. We'll check it again in a few weeks. But that'll be it for this video. Remember, if you liked it or you found anything valuable, like it, subscribe it, crank it, and rip it.